Hello, Torquay! I want to thank our chairman today, Richard Tice. I think, just to put me in the right frame of mind before coming to speak to you, he reminds me of my aeroplane crash in 2010. Thank you, Richard. Just what I needed. And whilst we're on this spirit of unity within Leave Means Leave, the chairman was wrong. He described me as the first Eurosceptic. I'm sorry, but that, in fact, was Henry VIII. Because that split from Rome was equally as historic as this split from Rome. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just be absolutely clear what's happened here. On June the 23rd, 2016, we had a referendum in this country. A referendum that was given to us, the British people. A referendum that I don't think the establishment really wanted to give us, but they were concerned about the rise of a particular political leader they weren't very keen on. And we had a referendum, and despite the fact the government massively outspent us, do you remember that leaflet? That leaflet that Cameron put through every door in the land? Spent 9 million quid of our money on? How I enjoyed posting that back through the door of number 10, I gotta tell you. But despite them outspending us, despite the best efforts of the neutral BBC, audience of very strong opinions, clearly. And despite the fact that virtually every big business leader, the multinationals, told us we'd lose jobs, we'd be in misery. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, do you remember that pasty-faced bloke called George Osborne? Telling us there'd be an emergency budget, interest rates would go up, predictions of doom, global leaders telling us we had to vote to remain, including, of course, the then President of the United States of America, Barack Obama. Despite being told that plagues of black locusts would descend upon our land, we stood up, we ignored them, and in what was the greatest exercise in democracy in the history of this great nation, we voted to leave. But even more important than the fact we voted to leave, we were told in that leaflet that Mr. Cameron sent out to us, we were told by the leaders of the Conservative parties and the Labour parties that whatever the result, they would respect the decision and it would be implemented. And here we are. Here we are. 2.5 years on, we now have a Labour Party quite prepared to turn its back on the 5 million of its own voters who wanted us to leave, now contemplating support for a second referendum and for keeping us in the single market. But if that wasn't bad enough, we have a Prime Minister who stands up and says things like, a little bit of that, you know. Well, Mark, you. It's the first time she's looked human for 10 years, so let me give her that. But we have a Prime Minister that stands up and says Brexit means Brexit. A Prime Minister that stands up, I'm sure they wind her up at the back in the mornings, and says we're going to take back control of our laws, our money and our borders, says we're going to leave the common fisheries policy. And well done, brave lad coming up on that stage earlier on. Not easy. Not easy getting up in front of an audience of this size. Very difficult. I'm always nervous every time too. Believe that, you believe anything. Anyway. But the point about this is, what really matters here isn't just the issues, though they do. And isn't it funny as we've heard already from Tim and from others, if we leave with no deal on WTO rules, it is no problem. Just look at Southampton and Felixstowe every day. Look at the huge vessels that come in from China, that come in from America. We do vast amounts of business with these countries on WTO rules. Most trade done in the world is done on WTO rules. So no deal, no problem. But here's the bizarre thing, and this is where the betrayal is, I think, at its worst. For 20 years, because that's how long I've now been in the European Parliament. They love me over there. Who are you? No. Well, you're not laughing now, are you? Yeah, Chairman Richard told me to keep it serious, so I am. For 20 years I've been there, and everybody from, as he was then Commissioner Kinnock. Oh, he's obviously out of fashion. I thought Kinnock would have got a bigger boo than that, but never mind. But everybody from Commissioner Kinnock to Giscard d'Estaing, all through those 20 years, people have said to me, if you want to leave our political union and replace that with a free trade agreement, that is on offer. And in the last few weeks, we've had Donald Tusk, even Monsieur Barnier. He's not arrogant, is he? We've had them saying if Britain wants a free trade tariff deal, it is on offer. We don't need a tariff deal to do business, but it kind of makes it easier. I'm sure Tim would agree with that. And they're offering it to us, and yet our government won't accept it. Because the truth is that when Mrs. May says Brexit means Brexit, what she actually means is Brexit means Remain. She intends, as we saw from that speech she gave in Florence, funny, isn't it? We spend 4 decades trying to opt out of bits of the European Union, and upon getting a vote to leave, we now spend 2 years trying to opt back into bits of the European Union. And she made that clear in her speech in Florence. She wants us to stay part of European agencies. She wants us now, after March the 29th, to stay in the customs union, we're told, until the end of 2021, by which she means until the next general election, when she stands up and says, please trust us and we will deliver Brexit. This transition period and this staying in the customs union is wrong for 2 principal reasons. The first is we are not able, during that period, to take any advantage of that Brexit vote. We will not be able to take back control of our territorial fishing waters, as we damn well should. We will not be able to lift a finger to help any of the 5.2 million men and women out there running their own businesses, acting as sole traders, acting as unpaid tax inspectors for the government, overburdened by bureaucracy, beaten down by regulatory authorities, those men and women who provide 60% of the jobs in the private sector in this country, and without whom our entire economy could not exist. They contribute far more than the firms of a CBI, and we need to help them. We will not, during Mrs. May's period, be able to negotiate any of our own other trade deals around the world, despite the fact the world's biggest economies are queuing up to do that with us, including, and I suggest to you this matters, including those countries from the Commonwealth, those countries who like us, those countries who in time of trouble come and stand beside us, and Brexit is a chance to reach out to those communities and those countries. We will not, under Mrs. May's plan, be able to introduce any immigration controls whatsoever. And most of us who voted Brexit believe that our post-war policy of a net migration figure of about 30,000 a year kind of worked. But the modern policy, the one with an open door to Europe and being lax with the rest of the world that we saw under Blair, under Brown and under Cameron, of over 300,000 people a year net coming to this country, is wholly unsustainable, bad for working communities. And one of the reasons we voted Brexit is we voted to take back control of our borders. And none of that can happen. None of that can now happen if Mrs. May's plan goes through. And of course she goes off, doesn't she, to Brussels on Thursday to the next European summit. And the second reason why this current course of action is wrong, there is something even more fundamental, folks, going on here than arguments about why it's right or wrong to leave the European Union. We had the people's vote in 2016. We made our decision. We made a democratic choice. And for this government to attempt to leave us half in and half out is not just to betray the people that voted in this referendum. It is to devalue, possibly permanently, the bond of trust that needs to exist between the electors and the elected that keeps us a free and peaceful country. We have got together under Leave Means Leave, and we're people from all political parties and none. We're people from business, we're people from civil society. We don't recognise the issues of left or right as even being relevant to the issue of getting Brexit delivered. This is about right and wrong, and we want Brexit delivered. So we ask you to do your bit. You could, if you wanted to, write to your MP, and you'll notice on the back of this leaflet, it's rather good, isn't it, really? The EU ball and chain and the kitten heel. It says quite a lot to me. On the back, you'll notice the names of all the local MPs in this area, including, of course, one, Sarah Wollaston from Torquay. A woman who initially said she would support the Leave campaign, but then, of course, she wanted to get elected, didn't she? Very soon turned turtle and is now pushing for a second referendum. I don't want you, if you live in Totnes, to just write to Sarah Wollaston. I want you queuing up outside her constituency office. I want you to go and meet Sarah Wollaston and tell her, and tell her, and tell the other MPs, if they betray this Brexit vote, if they betray this exercise in trust that was conducted by the British people, then you will never, ever vote for them again. But please, folks, when you go and meet your MP and speak to them, do so politely. Do so the English way. Do not stoop to the levels of behaviour that we've seen on many occasions from the other side. We are better than that. We are better as people. We believe in our communities. We believe in our country. We come from possibly the greatest nation that has ever been seen in the history of mankind. And what we need to do is to believe in Britain, to believe in our ability to govern ourselves. I never thought I genuinely never thought, after that glorious morning of June the 24th, and by the way, I still think June the 23rd needs to be a public holiday called Independence Day. But I never thought after that day I would need to be back on any stage or any platform whatsoever. I perhaps naively thought that they would carry out our will. It is now clear they will not carry out the chosen position of the British people. So what we now need to do with Leave Means Leave is not just have rallies around this country, it's not just get you to go and lobby your MPs. We will now need to rebuild the people's army that helped us deliver Brexit, and I ask you to volunteer, I ask you to join, I ask you to help us. We've got a big short-term battle over the course of the next few weeks, and I hope that those members of Parliament who are committed to delivering Brexit have the courage to stand up and do so. But we could be in, I'm sorry to say, for a much longer fight to get that result delivered. Well, I'll tell you something, if we are in for that long fight, I'm in for it, and I'm hoping you are too. Thank you. All right. Great stuff. We've got them up there. Brilliant.